He brought up one honest concern. By the end of the conversation, he was apologizing again. That was the pattern. Not once, not on the worst night. Almost every time. He would say something calm and specific. She would feel attacked. The issue would disappear. And somehow he became the problem. At first he told himself that was just what relationships looked like when two people were stressed. Maybe better communication would fix it. Maybe more patience would fix it. Maybe if he stayed measured, fair, and careful, the hard conversations would eventually lead somewhere good. He did not want drama. He did not want to dominate anyone. He did not want to be one of those men who turned every disagreement into a power struggle. So when something bothered him, he brought it up carefully. Soft tone, clear words, no insults, no raised voice. Just one honest concern at a time. At first the pattern was hard to see. Because the problem was not explosive. It was slippery. He would bring up something specific. A cancelled plan she brushed off like it was nothing. A cutting comment disguised as a joke. A moment where she disappeared emotionally the second he needed something real. He would not accuse her. He would not attack. He would simply say that something felt off and he wanted to talk about it. And almost immediately the conversation would shift. Not toward the issue, toward her reaction to the fact that he had raised one at all. Now she felt judged. Now she felt attacked. Now she was hurt that he would think that of her. Now the real problem was his tone, his timing, his wording, his energy, his supposed inability to let things go. And because he cared about her, he responded the way a decent man often does. He tried to calm it down. He explained that he was not attacking her. He clarified what he meant. He softened the language. He reassured her that he understood she was stressed, tired, overwhelmed, or misunderstood. He kept trying to rescue the conversation. But every rescue came with a cost. The original issue disappeared. What started as his concern became her pain. What started as a request for accountability became a discussion about her feelings. And by the end of it, he was usually the one apologizing. Not because he had been cruel. Not because he had lied. Not because the concern was false. But because apologizing restored peace faster than staying on the point. That is how the pattern got stronger. Not all at once. Gradually. A man does not usually wake up one day and decide to abandon his standards. He gets trained into it through repetition. One argument at a time. One emotional reversal at a time. One apology at a time. After a while, he was not just bringing up concerns. He was managing the entire emotional weather around them. He started thinking about timing before honesty. How do I say this so it does not explode? How do I raise this without ruining the night? How do I mention it without being called cold, harsh, dramatic, or controlling? He edited himself before he even opened his mouth. And when the conversation still turned against him, he blamed himself for not handling it better. Maybe I should have waited. Maybe I should have used softer words. Maybe I should have said less. Maybe I expect too much. That is the trap. A man can start with a real problem and end by cross-examining his right to have noticed it. And once that happens enough times, something inside him begins to shrink. He still sees what is wrong. He just stops trusting himself to name it. That was what changed the relationship more than any individual fight. He became more careful, more quiet, more strategic. Not because communication was improving. Because honesty was becoming expensive. He remembers one night especially clearly. It was not even the worst incident. That was what made it so revealing. They had plans. She changed them at the last minute again, with the same casual tone she always used when his time was the thing being spent. He brought it up gently. He said it was not just about the night, it was about the pattern. He felt like his time only mattered when it was convenient. That should have been a fair sentence. Instead, within minutes, he was defending whether he was being too intense. Then he was reassuring her that he knew she had a lot going on. Then he was hearing about how exhausting it was to feel like she was always failing him. Then he was comforting her while his own point sat untouched between them. By the end, he heard himself say the familiar words. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I brought it up. I'm sorry for making this bigger. I'm sorry for stressing you out. And the moment those words left his mouth, something in him finally noticed the shape of the whole thing. Different issue. Same ending. Every time. That was the moment he stopped looking at the arguments as separate events. He started looking at the structure. What actually happened every time he had a concern. First, he named something concrete. Then the discussion moved away from the behavior. Then he got pulled into explaining his intent. Then he got pulled into managing her distress. Then he apologized. Then nothing changed. Once he saw that clearly, the fight stopped feeling confusing. They felt instructional. The relationship was teaching him a lesson. Not how to communicate better. How to stop pressing on anything that made her uncomfortable. It was teaching him that standards create emotional punishment. It was teaching him that peace only returns when he abandons the point. It was teaching him that his job is not to be honest. His job is to be absorbent. To take the hit. To carry the tension. To repair the room. To leave his own complaint unresolved if that is what it takes to restore emotional order. A lot of men live inside that for far too long because it does not always look dramatic from the outside. There may be no screaming, no broken plates, no obvious scandal, just a repeating system where one person is allowed to have reactions and the other person is expected to manage them. That was the real exhaustion, not conflict itself. Conflict can be healthy. The exhausting part was knowing that every honest concern would eventually become a referendum on his delivery, his sensitivity, his patience, his masculinity, or his love. So the final conversation was different for one reason. Not because he had better words. Because he stopped accepting the old script. When the next issue came up, he said it plainly. He was tired of bringing up real concerns and watching the conversation turn into a trial about whether he should have spoken at all. Predictably, she moved toward the same door. He was too harsh, too negative, too hard to please. Maybe nothing she did would ever be enough. Before, that would have pulled him straight into repair mode. This time he stayed still. He did not raise his voice. He did not become cruel. He did not chase understanding. He simply returned to the point. I'm talking about the pattern, not attacking your worth. And I'm not apologizing for bringing it up. That line changed the entire energy of the room. Because the old system depended on him feeling guilty for having standards. The moment he refused that role, the argument had nowhere familiar to go. And in that silence, the truth became obvious. A relationship cannot be healthy if only one person is allowed to have a complaint. It cannot be intimate if honesty always has to crawl through guilt before it is allowed to exist. It cannot be safe if one person keeps learning that the price of truth is emotional punishment. So he left, not in a blaze of anger, not with a speech designed to wound her. He left because the pattern had already answered the question. And for the first time in a long time, the quiet after the conflict felt cleaner than the peace inside it ever had. That is the lesson a lot of men need earlier than they get it. If every argument ends with your apology, do not just study the fights. Study what the fights are training you to become. Are they making you more honest, more clear, more connected? Or are they teaching you to doubt yourself, soften every standard, and abandon your own reality to keep the relationship stable? Because those are not the same thing. Real communication can survive discomfort. Real intimacy can handle a clear concern without turning the speaker into the villain. But if honesty always becomes your guilt, then you are not building understanding. You are being trained to surrender. And a man who sees that clearly has only one real job left. Stop apologizing for the truth.